That's a life of a fisherman you wouldn't understand. Something you can't feel on dry land. You gotta get your arms way up in a cage and set the hook on smallmouth bass, and then you'll understand. You gotta get your hands on a Shimano reel and a G-Loomis trying to bet you like what you feel. Step on the deck, give it the world. Hello, welcome to my world.
What's going on, all you Facebook Live and YouTube Live fishing freaks? Welcome back to another episode of Honor the Line, your go-to source for bass fishing tips, hailing right here in the Buckeye State. So today, we're going to start talking about fall fishing because it looks like that's where we're headed. Larry Slack in the house. What's up, my brother? Again, this morning, walked outside, and I felt like I had to have a hoodie on. I didn't wear one because Mama didn't raise no punk. But it was 42 degrees when I walked outside this morning, which was a crazy culture shock, or not a culture shock, but it was a crazy shock to my my system. I didn't think it was going to be that cold this week. What's up, Lightning? How we doing, buddy? Got your email. Appreciate that. I haven't had a chance to respond back to you. Definitely going to be getting a hold of you here soon. There's just so much crap going on right now. We got an open house this Friday, but we'll get into it. Tony, what's up, my brother? How we doing, man? Hope you guys are out there catching them. But again, woke up this morning, 42 degrees, and it was absolutely chilly this morning, which makes me think that we should start talking about fall fishing here in the area. So whether you're from Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, other states, we're all headed into that fall weather pattern. And fall fishing is one of my favorite types of fishing to do ever, except when the leaves start falling really, really heavily, because one of my favorite techniques in the fall is going to be topwater, and the leaves just mess that up. What's up, Gary? What's happening? That's right. River Rat's coming up. It's always the first full weekend of October. So I assume that would be, I believe that's the 9th and 10th. I'll make sure that is true. The deal is that it's ran by River Valley Bass Club. A bunch of good guys there. Several folks that are that I know. Larry Slack is one of those guys. Kevin Wells. There's just so many people that I can name. Dan Mullins. But the River Rat is actually, I'm lying to you. It's the 4th and 5th. That is coming up soon. First full weekend in October out of the Cold Grove Boat Ramp. There is a pre-tournament meeting at 6:15 a.m. You do have to pay your registration in advance. They will not, unless they've changed it, they will not take registrations day of. I think you have until the day before to pay your entry fee, $200 entry fee, and it's a team tournament sponsored by a lot of people. Malone's Marine, who obviously you guys know we're big fans of here. Strix Marine Plus also, Hydraulic Services Supply over in Ashland. A lot of good folks putting this tournament on, so definitely take a look at that if you guys are interested in a tournament. Again, October 4th and 5th from the Cold Grove Boat Ramp. I was hoping that we would get the paving done by then, and it still could happen, but I'm not sure. We just the mayor just green-lighted the project on last Thursday, and so it's out for bids right now, as far as I know. So I think that stays up for 2 weeks. Depending on what kind of weather we have between now and then, we may have some new pavement down there for the River Rat. I cannot be for certain about that because, again, weather has to play into effect and a lot of different things. The river looks awesome right now. I really don't know when the last time we actually had rain here in Ohio was, and it's absurd to think about how often we normally get rain here, and we just haven't. Trying to take a look at it. as far as when the last time it rained, according to this thing, it's way, that's wrong. National Weather Service was way wrong. If you're buying tackle from overseas, the under $800 exception in over 2 days. Got Metanium DC, Scorpion DCs, and a Steez A2 that just came this week. Dude, that's a week right there, man. That's what I'm talking about. Those Scorpions are awesome. Metanium DCs are awesome too. You got hooked up, man. That's awesome. Great deal there. That's cool, man. That's a lot of cash. Talked about it last week, but I'm actually in the idea of talking myself out of buying a Poison Ultima. I've wanted one for a long time. They are extremely expensive. I could not afford them if I wasn't affiliated with Shimano and G Loomis. I do get a substantial discount, but it's still extremely expensive. If you don't know what a Poison Ultima is, it's the big brother to the Poison Adrena. The daggone things are like $849. That is absurd. I want one bad. I've wanted one for a long time. I've made a little bit of money this year off of YouTube, thanks to you folks out there. So I appreciate that very, very much. It means a lot. So again, that's my next purchase. Probably going to be in the springtime. I'm going to save up my pennies. But again, we're heading into that fall technique or fall area where we're looking at the summer fading and the temperatures dropping into the 50s and 60s, and bass behavior changes drastically, and it's actually for the better. So when we're headed into the fall, it just means shorter days, cooling water temperatures. Typically, we're talking about 70 degrees down to about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the way I think about fall. And bass start gearing up for winter feeding, and they start feeding aggressively. So there's a really good chance. It's a prime time for some big catches in Ohio waters, Kentucky waters, any kind of water, depending on that, especially bass fishing. But, guys, I apologize. That sounds like my smoke alarm, but it's a thing that squeaks on my chair here. It sounds like the old cricket, but that's not true. But anyway, big catches this time of year, especially in Ohio's lakes, rivers, reservoirs. If you're up around northern Ohio and you're watching this, man, Mosquito Lake is one of my favorite fisheries in the state of Ohio. It's an absolute awesome fishery. I love it. Ton of grass, some big fish in there. That's what I'm talking about. That's actually what I'm actually thinking about buying. That's the exact rod. It's pretty good. I'll have to check that out. Tony, top 3 baits using a fall. That for me is pretty easy of a question because I love topwater. I do a lot of things like I'll just say technique specific, and then I'll name techniques, and then I'll talk about the baits that I would throw in those techniques, which is not exactly what you asked, but in the fall, I pick up more baits than normal because, again, I just like to throw different baits. But number one is going to be some kind of topwater, usually a buzz bait, some kind of walking bait, something like a spook or, a cane walker or something like that. I really like those. Buzz baits are awesome. I like my 3/16 buzz bait that I pour. It's the exact knockoff of the Tackle Box. If you guys are from my area, it's Greg Drown's bait to a T. Except he used Eagle Claw hooks on his, and I'm putting mustads in mine. I just like mustads a little bit better. I think they're a little sharper. And then, topwater's obviously got to be there. My second one is going to be shallow cranking. That's the one I'm going to pick up 1.5s. I'm going to pick up a 2.5 and be throwing that some flat-sided crankbaits as the water gets colder, something like the Little John Type R. I really like the Little John Type R in Rayburn Red. Is one of my absolute favorite collars ever. It's just great. And by the way, guys, if you don't know, the Little John Type R, so Little John 50 is what I'm talking about. And it's made by Spro, obviously. Spro Little John Type R. The Type R is a rattling version. And when I say rattling, it absolutely rocks. I mean, it's got a huge rattle in it. So that's definitely going to be one. 1.5, going to be throwing, any type of crankbaits at this point that dives anywhere from a foot down to about 15 foot. Those are great baits to be picking up in this time of year. And I think that we have to go back to, picking up that jerk bait. That's going to be number 3 for me. Is going to be some form of jerk bait, and I have fallen in love with the Shimano Zumverno 95 SP. It is absolute my favorite jerk bait that has ever been made. I like it better than Megabass Vision 110s, Vision 110s Plus, Vision 115s, whatever you name it. Now, Megabass makes awesome jerk baits. I have $10,000 worth of them, it seems like. And when you think about Megabass, it doesn't take long at $25 a piece to get that much. I don't have $10,000, obviously. That's being a little facetious there, but I probably got $400 or $500 worth of them easy at $25 a piece. They work really well. They are great jerk baits. I love them. But right now, I just keep picking up that Zumverno 95. I like the 95 millimeter size. That's what the 95 is. And it has a lot of cool things that Shimano is known for in their baits. It has flash boost technology, which is basically just a piece of metal foil, if you will. It's attached on 2 springs on both ends. So especially in a jerk bait, I think that it works really well because when you pause the bait, that it's giving a little iridescency, and you see that thing flickering in there, fluttering, kind of reminds you of like fins moving or what have you. Just adds a little bit of extra oomph for that bass to come and bite it. And I like matte collars in jerk baits. Matter of fact, I don't know, like right now, even the ones that aren't matte, I'm taking like a piece of Scotch-Brite or a Scotch-Brite pad and knocking the high shine or high visibility off of that thing, or high gloss that's the word I'm looking for. I just like the matte collars better. I don't know why they make them. It makes them different in the water, but I feel like that I get bit 5 times as much on a matte collar bait. The Zumverno 95 SP, the best 2 collars that I've found. Number 1 is going to be Macchiato. That's my favorite collar out of that whole thing. And then Matte Pro Blue is an awesome collar too. Yeah, you're not lying. They are hard to find. I know you're not local to me, but Borders in Ashley, Kentucky has several of them. They used to be very prevalent at the tackle box. I really miss that place a lot. You can go down there and pretty much get anything you want. The Type R's are hard to find. They do say Type R on the box, but if you go to like Bass Pro or something like that carries those things, they never have Type R's. But my advice to you, if you're going to start throwing, those Little Johns, grab a Type R or 2. And don't look back. They are expensive. I'm not going to lie to you. They're like $15 to $17 a piece. Again, I'm not saying that I'm made of money. I like the crankbaits. I buy a pile of them. I probably got 20 Rayburn Reds up in my tackle or up in my garage on my bait wall, because when the tackle box was going out of business, Greg made me a deal that I couldn't refuse on all my favorite collars. I bought them all, and I've been using them so often. Yep, I don't agree. I don't disagree with you. I love Mustad. If I was going to go anything other than Mustad, probably would then go into. I like Gamakatsu's pretty well too, but Mustad and Gamakatsu is my favorite. I really like them way better than Eagle Claws I mentioned before. So again, back to the cooling water. Again, we're looking at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Right now, we're still in the 80s. I'd say it's going to cool down a little bit. Last time I was at Yatesville, which was last Thursday, which we're going to talk about in just a second, it was like 84, 85 degrees still to this day. It was really warm. It's got to be cooler than that now. We've had several fairly chilly days throughout the day, so I'm figuring it's probably going to be 79 to 83 probably. There's a tournament out there tomorrow that I may go fish. But now we're getting back into that where we're now getting more dissolved oxygen back into the water due to cooling water temperatures. Normally in the summertime when the water's really, really hot, you're looking for that, that thermocline. And a thermocline is going to be something that obviously where the hot and cold water meet. There's a thermocline there. But normally what happens there is that's where all the most dissolved oxygen's at. It's going to be at or around that thermocline. So you're going to see a lot of fish being suspended in the summertime, especially going deeper into the summertime haunts. And then now we're going to get that dissipation of that thermocline going around, because eventually here within the next month or so, you're going to see what's known as the lake turning over, and that's literally that thermocline reversing. You're going to get the what is cooler water on the bottom reversing, and the warmer water on top obviously will be colder than the water down below. And then obviously heat rises. It does basically a 180 with the water. Water gets really dull and murky and hard to fish because, again, the dissolved oxygen, or the amount of oxygen that fish can take into their gills, becomes less and less because of that transition period with the water. But right now, with the water cooling, we should see more dissolved oxygen in bigger portions of that water column. So now fish are going to be more apt to move around. They're going to be more apt to travel, go into shallow places, come out of those deeper haunts where they've been all summer, and go in looking for some bait fish and crawfish and stuff. So we're heading at. The bill of the crankbait is the only color that matters. That may be true. I'm not sure. Fritz is an awesome fisherman for sure. Lightning, to be honest with you, man, Yatesville Lake right now is super clear. It's not gin clear. It's gin clear right now because we haven't had any water. We haven't had any rain. It's usually probably, I don't know, I'm going to guess 6 to 8 foot of visibility normally. And then right now, man, it's super clear. Like you could see, I don't know, I'd say 5 to 8 foot of visibility normally. Right now you're at 10 to 12 probably, depending on sunlight, where you're at. I've been noticing when I've gone out to Yatesville the last couple times that they're holding more water back into the lake. And it may be just for the fact that we haven't had any rain, but Yatesville right now is like 2 foot above normal pool or summer pool. And I think that they're just holding it back because of the water, no water coming into it. But one thing that I've noticed about Yatesville is actually a pretty cool lake where you can actually pattern fish and transfer that around the lake. Now, if you go to Grayson, which is, right down the road from there, not too far from here for me, it's really hard to pattern fish at Grayson. It just feels like every fish in that lake does a different thing. But if you go to Yatesville and you're throwing a crankbait on timber and you catch a fish and you go to the next little bit of timber and you catch another fish with that crankbait, you can almost go to any rock or any stump, lay down, wood, whatever, and throw that crankbait and catch a fish. This past couple months, I've went out to Yatesville, and with the water being higher, those fish normally go real shallow. I'm talking they get up in like inches of water, even in the summertime, which is crazy. But I know, watching Cameron Dials and coming in and just absolutely smoking people in all the tournaments around here, the dude's an absolute live scope champion. The guy is awesome. He's awesome at it. He wins a ton of money doing it. So this past month, I have set my goals of trying to learn my live scope a little bit better in the tournaments that I fish. That's the reason I haven't had a ton of footage out on YouTube in the last couple months, is the fact that I know you guys don't want to see me just standing on the front of the boat. I get it. I don't want to do that, but I try to be better and try to be better in the last 2 tournaments out of Yatesville. And I have got my rear end thumped the last couple times. Went out there, I scoped from the minute that we could take off at 5 o'clock until 9:30, scoping different areas, different baits, looking for fish. I probably caught 40 fish, but they were all like 8 to 14 inches long. 15-inch keeper is what the keeper is there at Yatesville Lake. 2 tournaments out there, I've yet to catch a keeper. So if I go out tomorrow, I'm going to leave my egg beaters, my spinning rods in the boat, and I'm going old school fishing. I'm going to throw jigs, Carolina rigs, crankbaits, you name it. I'm going to go out there and just have fun and try to do what's up with it, see what I can do. Oh, I got you. Sorry. So the belly, that makes sense. Probably true, especially because most fish feed up if they're seeing the bottom of the bait more than anything. Some again, as I mentioned, if you're in Ohio, some reservoirs and stuff that you'll probably want to hit. Mosquito Lake's going to be firing up, which is 5 hours from me. Alum Creek's about 3 hours from me, which are 2.5 hours. Great time there. The Ohio River, guys, is going to start turning on. That's the river rat coming up soon. I think it's going to turn on and be fire for most folks that are fishing that. I normally don't fish the river at just for the simple fact that I don't feel like I'm good enough at the river right now to compete against some of the hammers that fish there week in and week out. But this year I was planning on fishing it. I had everything laid out as far as what days I was going to fish and pre-fish and things. And then I found out the other day that we have a home football game that Saturday. So I will not be able to fish anyway. I stream our football games for our high school football team on Facebook and YouTube, practically what I'm doing here now. But we play on Saturday, so that kind of throws a wrench into plans for fishing the river at. But if you're around the area and you like fishing the river, it's tough, can be tough, but it's a great deal. So that's it's a great point there. And the thing about it is like, it's very frustrating for me because I can take a jig or a crankbait or a jerkbait or top water, and I can normally go out and catch enough fish to compete. Now, don't feel like I'm going to be able to win every tournament at Yatesville, especially not at Yatesville, because man, there's some hammers out there. But I know that I can beat the bank up and catch enough fish, a fish. I guarantee I can catch some fish doing what I know. And then I try to step back into the realm of learning technology and learning LiveScope. And first off, I don't put enough time and effort into it. This is not something that you go out and learn in one day. This is not something you go out and learn in 1 week. It's probably not something you learn in one summer. I've went out, and I think my biggest thing about LiveScope is, and this is the reason I think there's so many crazy people that are haters of LiveScope. I get it, guys. I don't want to use it. If they banned it tomorrow, I would sell my stuff. Like, I'm not going to go out there. Like, I don't go out fishing and just think, you know what, I'm going to go LiveScope. I was LiveScoping in these tournaments because at Yatesville, that's how they're basically all won. So I'm trying to get better at it, but it's really frustrating when you go out there knowing that you can beat the banks up and probably catch, 5 to 7 pounds worth of fish, and go out there for 5 hours LiveScoping and never catch one keeper. So it's very frustrating. So I could see where they would say that. So I enjoy tournament fishing so much. It's not unreal. And the reason that I'm going out and LiveScoping these tournaments that I'm fishing, because they're really small, basic tournaments. Like, we're paying $25 entry fees. It's not a giant amount of money. So I'll pay my $25 and go out there and take my lumps, but I'm definitely not going to hop into any big tournaments like BFLs and things like that, especially if LiveScope's available, because I'm just not that good at it right now, and I'll be the first to tell you that I'm not. Because again, I'm out there doing this stuff, seeing a fish that'll swim up to it and not bite my bait, then I'll get frustrated 20 minutes in and go pick up a jig and go start beating the banks up, because it just frustrates me. So I don't give it enough time. That's what I'm trying to do lately, though. So back to we have the bass fishing cold or cooler waters. Again, we got cooling waters again, 50 to 70 degrees. They're coming up out of those summer haunts, going shallow, looking for things like baitfish, shad, crawfish, things that will be schooling up this time of year, especially like shad spawn and things like that. You're going to be looking at shallow backs of pockets in the mornings and the evenings. Those things kind of traverse out into the main lake during the day. But in my area, or depending on when the water gets in this area, you're definitely going to look at anywhere from 5 to 15 foot of water. That's my go-to during this time of year, 5 to 15 foot of water. If there's grass in your fishery, you're definitely looking at weed edges, rocky points, creek channel, swing banks that are real deep. These are great places to find fish in the fall, because again, these fish are knowing that the days are getting shorter, the water's getting cooler. They know what's coming up. They know that they're going to be going into the wintertime. They don't feed as often. They have slower metabolism. So they eat as much as they can to try to sustain as much as they can over the winter. Now, they're going to have to eat practically every day, right? They're still going to eat, but it's not going to be like it is right now. When the water starts cooling off, they are just going to go into a feeding frenzy, and it makes it easier for you and I to catch bass, which is exactly what we want. They also become more active during the day. So normally right now, especially in the summer times, it's early morning, late evening. That's basically your best bite windows. And then now going into the fall, it's going to start lengthening that bite window. They're going to become more active during the day, especially on warmer afternoons when you have water or you have sunlight penetrating clear water. And one of the misnomers that most folks don't think about is that muddy water actually heats up faster than clear water. And it took me a minute to understand why that was until I talked to a biologist one time, and he helped me understand, and it makes sense to me now when I think about it. You have, if you have muddy water, especially really, really muddy water, you have a lot of sediment that's suspended in that water. So that sediment, or like mud and sand and silt, gets hit by the sun rays, which is going to then heat those particles up, which basically heats the water up around it. So basically, it's like having a small heater on every one of those particles of mud. So it actually heats up quicker, but also it actually will cool off quicker, especially towards the top if the wind's blowing a lot, because again, same effect. And, don't overlook those early mornings and late evenings because they can obviously still be explosive. Look for, again, in the backs of pockets for shad spawn. You're going to see shad flicking on top of the water this time of year. You're going to see huge balls of shad in your area, any kind of threadfin, shad, whatever you have, alewives, whatever. These bait fish are going to be, spawning up, or they're going to be getting together, grouping up, having that fall spawn going on. So you're going to be looking at bass underneath those things. That's where topwater comes into play, especially those walking baits. And if you have one tied on, and I have a hard time tying one on because it's like the only time that you can use it as a fish is schooling, but Jackall makes a bait called the riser bait, and it's it actually is made to mimic a bait fish that is being chased by a schooling fish. Now, it's really tough to understand how to fish it, right off the rip, but once you get the hang out of it, it is actually one of the most deadly lures on the planet for schooling fish. But I would much rather have something like a walking bait tied on because I can throw that without the fish being schooling too. Just something to think about there. One of the key tips is to monitor water temperatures. Check out your graphs. Be keen to even a 1 to 2 temperature change, 1 to 2 degree temperature change during the day. We're going to be getting cooler during the day normally, unless it's really hot and sunny. You're going to be looking at something that says like, if we're starting out at like tomorrow, if I go out and it's 79 degrees when I put my boat in the water, if it's 77, 76 by the time I get off the water, that's a pretty substantial change there. So fish are going to be noticing that. They're going to have, it's going to affect their metabolism. They're going to start feeling those shorter days. So we're definitely going to be feeding up. So that's definitely something to take a look at. Make sure you look at the graph. Make sure you look at, and if you don't have a fish finder, guys, carry a thermometer with you. I know it's a pain in the rear end, but check your water temperature. It's one of the best things you can do as an angler, I think. Yep, I like the riser as well. Glide baits, man. I made my own glide baits there for a while. I haven't stopped. I'm going to start making them again this winter. I just don't have enough time to think about it. But I just can't get confidence in glide baits right now. I do throw some bigger swim baits, mag drafts, things like that. I need to get into it, especially like the new glide baits that came out at ICAST. Shimano has one. What is that thing called? Gravitator, something like that. It's a really good one. Then we got those, trick shads and all that other stuff. There's so many in there. But great technique, or great tip there, Lightning. Appreciate that. Definitely glide baits around. Anytime you can mimic what the fish are eating, right? We want to match the hatch for sure. Again, we talked about it. Some top techniques for bass fishing in the fall. We're going to be looking at shallow cranking and jerk baits. Fast moving retrieves, which seems like counterintuitive as the water gets cooling down, but you want to cover a lot of water in the fall. The more water you can cover in the fall, the more chances you're going to have to catch a fish. It's the rule. It's the law of averages, guys. If you make enough casts at key points in the lake, you're going to have the opportunity to catch more bass. Now, does that mean they're going to eat? Yes or no? You never know. But you are going to put the average on your side by casting more and casting farther, covering more water. So anything that you can use to get your Casting distance up using a different reel, something like a DC, or using lighter line, or making sure the rod is paired for what you're throwing it. Even 2 to 5 feet of extra line, extra casting distance could change the way you catch fish throughout the day. Again, casting parallel in the fall is my favorite thing to do. Get up shallow, cast parallel to the bank, cast parallel to trees, stumps, rocks, what have you. If you got somebody in the back of your boat, probably not the greatest idea, because you're going to tick them off pretty bad, because you're going to be, front ending them all day. But have them come on the front deck and help, do the same thing with you. Parallel the banks, again, covering more water. The more water you cover, better chance you're going to have to catch those bass that are definitely going to be feeding with that water getting cooler, nights getting longer, or the days getting shorter, etc. I will switch up my jerkbait retrieve in the fall, especially as the water is fairly warm. I'll start a really fast, erratic movement throughout the day, and if I don't get bit, then I'll slow it down throughout the day. But when it gets down to that 50-degree water temperature, I'm pulsing a jerkbait for what seems like forever. I'm talking like 5 to 10 seconds. I'm talking about, like Zona said one time in a fishing show that he done. He was fishing a warm water power plant lake like 10 years ago, and he said something that was hilarious, and I still say it to this day. Me and Kyle talk about it all the time. It's like, jerk, check your email. Like, let that baby sit. 9 times out of 10, I usually catch a fish when it's paused more than when it's working, right? Matter of fact, when you go to make that twitch with that jerk bait, you're going to feel the fish being heavy, because, again, they come up and attack those things right at that pause point, it seems like, more often than not. Can't rule out some finicky bass in the fall, especially when that water temperature is still in the 70s. Definitely drag out something like a drop shot or a Ned rig. I saw a really cool worm this past week that I think it was made by Chompers, if I'm not mistaken, but it was called the possum tail worm. It curled up on the end, and as you pulled it up, it would straighten out, and then when you released it, it would curl back up again. So I thought that was really cool. I have to check that worm out as well. Something like a shaky head is going to be great during this fall time. If I'm doing like finesse stuff, I'll probably kind of skirt off into that 10 to 20 foot range, especially if you're in a pressured lake or it's the water temperature still in the 70s, 80s. Definitely dive into that 10 to 20 foot range. Again, some kind of popper, walking bait, frog over lily pads, dying grass beds, etc. is deadly this time of year when it starts getting cooler. You're going to see that grass start dying off. Fish are still on that grass, but they don't. It seems like they stay on the edges more of it. I think due to the fact that dead grass, in my opinion, I don't know this to be a fact. I think it takes up some of the oxygen in the water, decomposing like that, decaying. So they stay out on the outside of those things. But again, if you can find some grass, especially dead, dying grass, not like brown grass, but something that's like not as vibrant as it was in the summertime. Seems like fish just absolutely congregate to that stuff. Fall is awesome time to throw a spinnerbait around those grass edges as well. My favorite spinnerbait's a 1/4 ounce with a willow leaf blade. Awesome. I love it. If I'm going to throw one collar spinnerbait the rest of my life, it's going to be a white and chartreuse with a nickel hammered blade. Yeah, Gary, that's one thing that I would like to learn too is the A-rig. I do have one. I throw it often at Yatesville, especially in the fall. In the spring, they absolutely love it. And that's when you say where and when, that's it. In my opinion, if I'm thinking about it, it's going to be when those bait fish are schooling up, and those fish that we're trying to catch are going to be more or less lethargic, so they're going to be chasing a lot more bait. If you can find bass that are schooled up, it's absolutely deadly if you pull it through there, because anytime you get any kind of competition with fish, it seems like you can catch them more often than not. You hear people talking about getting a school fired up. I feel like if you catch one out of a school, you can pretty much catch the rest of them, because I don't know what it does to them, but it absolutely turns them on like crazy. You obviously cannot go talking about the fall without talking about jigging, flipping, pitching, stuff like that. In my opinion, I think the jig has caught more and bigger largemouth bass than any other bait on the planet. I'm definitely going to dive into that 6 cents bodega that they have out when they come back in stock. They've been out of stock all summer. It's like a 6.5-inch crawl style bait. Awesome action. Again, no affiliation with 6 cents. They're kind of expensive, but I think they're actually going to work good. I'm going to use them for a jig trailer. I think it gives it a little bit of action, makes your bait a little bit bigger, especially this time of year in the fall when fish are going to be looking for bigger baits and bigger forage to make sure they can get stocked up for the winter. Football jig, crawled on rocky bottoms, definitely imitates crawfish. You listen to some pros; they'll have you standing on your head saying that a jig mimics a bluegill. I've never understood that. Maybe the collar, that's basically all I could tell you. It looks like it, but I've never seen a jig, even a swim jig, look like a bluegill. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've heard some pros say it. It just absolutely blows my mind that they think that. Maybe, I mean, that's why they're pros. It probably is true. I don't know. Again, crankbaits, square bill, lipless, great one. Again, Strike King KVD, 1.5, 2.5, something like the Type R, Little John. The Fritz side, rattle traps are awesome. Red Eye Shads, we talked about it last week. Red Eye Shad, according to all the research I've done, is one of the top best-selling baits that has ever existed. Which I thought that would be hard to believe because the Bill Norman or the rattle trap, and apparently it has outsold the rattle trap over the years, which is crazy to think about. Looking for a shad pattern, something that's white, silver for clear water. If you have a murky, muddy water, that chartreuse black is a great combination for some reason. They really like that in the fall. If you're deeper, cranking somewhere in that 10 to 20 foot range, I really like that blue and chartreuse bait still to this day during this time of year. Dive somewhere looking in 5 to 10 foot. Make sure you're bumping structure. If you're not digging, you ain't diving. So the mini A rigs is where I am at. I have a mini tied on right now. Was a Flash Mob Junior, I think, is what I have. No, it's not a Flash Mob Junior because that's the small. It's actually smaller than that. But I'm with you on the smaller A rig. Buckeye balling out green pumpkin. Pretty daggone good one there too. Again, just to mention a couple of jerk baits you might want to be interested in getting into. Again, the Shimano Zoom Verno 95 SP is my favorite right now. Next will probably be a Megabass Vision 110. Lucky Craft Pointer is a good one. Natural colors like Ghost Minnow, Sexy Shad, red accents for low lights. I figure that fine, low light fall days. I feel like those are better suited for those days. Something like Clown or something like that. Suspending models are key for 45 to 55 degree water temperature, in my opinion. And again, I always go with matte colors. I don't buy any jerk bait that has a high gloss finish to it. And if I have to, then I will take, Scotch-Brite and scuff that thing off there. Jigs and trailers, obviously, we're talking, I pour a lot of my own stuff, but I also fish a lot of stuff from Picasso. I like their football head jigs, especially their Aaron Martin's football head. They're all tungsten. They have titanium weed guards. They're just really quality jigs. They are a little bit more expensive than most jigs because, again, they are titanium. Titanium weed guards. They are tungsten heads. So pretty much all their jigs, as far as I know, is tungsten. Really like those jigs. I do pour my own for lead stuff. If I'm throwing around heavy structure, something like timber or big rocks, chunk rocks, I'm going to throw a lead jig 9 times out of 10. One, because I know that I'm going to lose it eventually, and I got like $1.50 probably max in a jig if I pour it myself. I probably have less than that. I probably have like 75 cents in one. So it's easier for me to lose those. So I do pour it. I do use those a lot. Do it molds are awesome. I know that there's a sensitivity difference between tungsten and lead. It's just harder. It's more dense, so you feel everything going through your line and your rod a little bit more. But usually fishing a jig, they usually hammer that thing anyway. So that little bit of sensitivity, I will give that up for not going broke any day of the week. Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I do like the Jackal Re-Range 110 as well. Actually, it's they have a 115. It's not a 110. It's a little bit bigger. That's one reason that I don't throw it as much, but I do. No, it's a 110. I was thinking of the what is the other Shimano jerkbait? World Minnow. The World Minnow is a 115. I do like the Re-Range. If you've never thrown a Jackal Re-Range, you are in for a treat the very first time you cast it, because when you cast that thing, it's going to sound like your line breaks 100% of the time. It has a weight transfer system in there called Jet Boost technology that allows. It's actually not called Jet Boost. It's the same technology as Jet Boost, but it's Jackal's version of it. Has a weight transfer system on there. When you cast, it actually hits the back of the lure, causing inertia to go farther, or the inertia to allow the bait to go farther. I like it. I don't know. I always get my colors mixed up, but I think it's just called Pearl White. It's not called Bone. I think it's called Pearl White. It's my favorite Jackal Re-Range 110 for sure. I really like that one as well. So thanks, Lightning. I appreciate you reminding me with that. Soft plastics in the fall, I'm definitely going to pick up Senkos. Obviously, Senkos catch fish 100% of the time. I don't care where you're at, you can catch fish on a Senko. The great thing about a Senko is you can rig that thing 958 different ways. You can throw it on a Carolina rig, you can throw it on a shaky head, you can throw it on a wacky rig, Texas rig, a Nico rig. There's just so many ways you can throw a Senko, and they absolutely catch fish all of the time. Great thing about a Senko, as we talked about last week, it's a do-nothing bait. Man, you throw that thing out there, let it sink, and you either catch fish or you don't. And if you're not catching fish on a Senko, you have the wrong collar, or there's no fish in your lake, because I guarantee you can catch fish on Senkos. It's been proven time and time and time and time again. Tubes are a bait that most folks don't fish, especially in my area. They're deadly right now, especially if you throw something like a stupid tube or something that you can you can rig weedless. It's really fire bait, because most people don't throw it, and it's something fish don't see that often. There is actually an invasive species that is a freshwater jellyfish that I've seen in other lakes, ponds around my area. So I think that has something to do with them biting a tube, but it could be just the action that it has as well. Again, that you got to think about spinner baits, buzz baits. I don't know, man. Like, if I'm throwing deep spinner baits, half ounce, I'll even throw like 3/4 spinner bait if I'm throwing something 20, 25 foot, slow rolling that baby. I'm talking about just having those blades just thump down there. Big, deep dwelling spinner bait. Again, my favorite spinner bait collar right now is definitely white and chartreuse. I will throw that 100% of the time. It is my absolute go-to. Buzz baits are going to be white or black or something with, like, it's called ghost or blue and white. There's just a lot of different things depending on the color of the lake. And I think we haven't got there yet, but when we get into that 60 degree water temperature and lower, especially into that 50, 40 degree range there, blade baits come out of my tackle box, and I'll start throwing those things. You can throw them a lot of different ways. You can rip them, you can yo-yo them, you can just reel them just like a crankbait. You can, especially if you have live scope, you can watch it. If you cast it out there, you can see when the bait's going to go. And actually, if you let it sink to like 10 feet and you reel it, similar to a red-eye shad or a rattle trap, it'll come back right in that same water column that you cast it to, which is really good. Jackhammers are awesome. Love chatterbaits as a whole. Jackhammers are really, really good baits. Matter of fact, I picked up last year an IMX Pro rod just to throw chatterbaits with. It is a CBR, or not a CBR. It's a BJR, bladed jig rod. I think it's an 883 BJR is what it is. It's IMX Pro. Really cool. Really love that rod. I do throw, especially around grass, rocks, timber, stuff like that. Awesome fall bait. Now, one thing that most folks don't think about is gear and safety when it gets colder. You're going to layer up for chilly mornings. These temperatures can swing anywhere from 20 to 30 degrees, right? So if it might be 40 degrees in the morning and it might be 70 degrees in the afternoon. So you're going to be layering up. But one of the things that you have to think about when you put all those clothes on, if you were to fall in the water, that is now double or triple the amount of weight that you're going to have on your body when that material gets water soaked. So that's one thing that I, especially, those of you guys that may be watching or getting a little up in your age and you're still out there enjoying fishing, we want to see you enjoy fishing for the remainder of your life. We don't want to see it end abruptly. So it might be a time where if it's cold and you got a bunch of clothes on, wear that life jacket while you're fishing, especially if you have an inflatable. A lot of times you really don't even know you're wearing it, just for the simple fact is I know that I've done it. I went out, just got to my first spot, ready to start fishing. 10 minutes into the day, I look down, I'm like, oh, I still have my life jacket on. So again, you got to think about having those, that little bit extra gear on. If you're fishing in and around structure, it goes without saying, make sure you use some kind of line that's good with abrasion resistance. Something like a braid or even a fluorocarbon, obviously 10 to 15 pounds, probably where I'm going to go, 10 to 16 pound, depending on that. So obviously, always check your boat regulations. Make sure you have all the stuff for your boat 100% of the time, not just in the fall, but make sure you have plenty of life jackets for everybody on your boat. I don't know this to be true because I haven't dove into it, but I was told one time that a PDF or I think it's a Type 4, whatever the inflatable one is. I think it's a Type 4. I could be wrong. But the inflatable life jacket that I have in my boat, I have one for myself, one for Misty or my co-angler, and I have a third one in my boat in case there's somebody else there. But I was told one time by an angler that if that doesn't count towards the number of life jackets you have in your boat unless you are actually wearing it when the DNR pulls up. I don't know if that's true or not. I definitely need to dive in to see what's going on there. Yeah, so that's a great point. One of the most scary times I've ever had in a boat that didn't involve me was Kyle and I were fishing one of the very first tournaments of the year at Grayson. It was cold. I mean, we get to the boat ramp. It's like 35-degree air temperature. They're putting salt down on the boat ramp because the boat ramp's freezing and people's stuff is about to slide into the boat ramp or into the water. So we're out there. We're all bundled up. I got every piece of clothing that I possibly own. I got like a baklava on. It is absolutely frigid, man. It is cold. It's still to this day one of the coldest days I've ever fished, other than it being snowing. But we're going around Grayson, what I call the gauntlet, or most people call it the bongos or the cliffs. There's one section about a mile of Grayson that just has sheer rock cliffs on both sides of it. And it's only about, 50 or 60 yards wide all the way through there. So we're coming around through there. We're boat like 20 in this tournament. It was a USA Bassin tournament. I'll never forget it. We come around that first turn coming into what I call, again, the gauntlet there because it's so narrow. And it gets really rough in there because it's nothing more than rock walls on both sides, and it gets churned up, especially when on takeoffs for boat or for big boat tournaments and stuff like we're talking about. We come around through there, and like it was calamity is how the only way I can explain it. There's a boat 50 yards ahead of us picking two guys up out of the water. There's a boat in between us and that boat that was just sitting there doing spinning in circles. They didn't have a hot foot in their boat. It was a bullet boat. I know for a fact because I got up close and personal with it. But that day, those guys hit a wave. And actually what had happened, they were coming around through there and hit a wave, and it caused their motor to come out of the water, and they skipped the boat. And when it hit a wave and threw both of those guys out of the boat, and it threw them out so violently that the guy was sitting in the driver's seat. And I can't say this for certain. I'm going to guess that it wasn't, because it would be really tough to see how it happened this way. If not, I don't know if his driver's seat was actually bolted down or screwed down, but it ripped him and the driver's seat out of the boat. And that was one of the guys they were picking up. He hit the gear shift lever and broke the gear shift lever off right at the top of the gunnel of the boat, broke it totally off. The trolling motor pedal had broken loose and was up on, was actually in the water. Kyle and I had to, looking back on it was kind of dumb, but something had to have been done. It would have just sat there and done that circles until it ran out of gas. So we just kind of like paced it. And it wasn't going really fast. We were probably going like 3 to 5 mile an hour, probably. It was just sitting there doing circles. So we paced this thing, and it got to the point where we get to the boat, and I told Kyle, I was like, I'm going to run off your boat and jump into this boat. So he was like, all right. So we start pacing it, and we started getting right. It took us about 5 minutes to get in pace with the boat. And he finally got me real close, and I took off running, and I jumped in the water, or jumped in the boat, which I got lucky. If I would have missed his boat, or something happens, we hit the boat, whatever. If I go in the water at that point, I did have a life jacket on, but if I go in the water, I risk getting chewed up by the prop. Again, not my brightest moment ever. I look back on it thinking, my God, I got lucky. But I jumped in the boat, put the boat into neutral, turned the engine off, got his trolling motor out of the water, and went up there. And that dude was in so much shock because the water temperature was so cold that we took him back to the boat ramp, got him in his truck, got his truck started. He stripped down totally naked. A grown man stripped down totally naked because he was so cold, got in his truck, turned the heater on. And when we got back from fishing that tournament 8 hours later, he was still sitting in his truck in the exact same spot, had never moved. It was a really, really, really scary moment for me. But that dude, it had to have been like out of body experience for that guy. So goes without saying, make sure, you're bundling up, because this is the truth. Do as Lightning says here, take you some extra clothes in your truck, because that guy didn't. Matter of fact, we ended up giving him an old yellow, like one of those old school, like shrimping boat, life jacket or rain suits that we had in Kyle's boat as an extra, and put it on him. It didn't fit him anywhere close to it, but at least it got him warm on the way back to the boat ramp. We were only about a mile from the boat ramp, but he sat in his truck for 8 hours. And I just don't think he was mentally there. It was so cold, a lot of stuff going on there, and I'm sure it shook him up pretty good. I'm not familiar with that one, man. I do know that I use a lot of, I use Stormer gear. And the reason I use Stormer in the winter when it gets cold is the fact that it's positively buoyant. So I'm sure it's the same with what you're talking about. This one will float you. Now it's not going to be, don't use it in place of a PFD for sure. But definitely, it definitely will keep you floating as opposed to sinking you like most stuff. Todd, I don't disagree with you. And the thing about it is, in Ohio, you actually do have to have a captain. Well, not a captain's license. You have to have a boater safety course. And that is, I think it causes a lot of less headache on the water for folks that know how to use proper signals, knowing the different channel markers and stuff like that. I think it should be required, even if it was free. I think Ohio's is free as long as you don't take it somewhere in person. I think you can do it online and send your test in. I'm pretty sure it's free that way. But anyone born after January 1st to 1982, I think that's the cutoff date in Ohio. Anybody born after that date has to have a boater safety card. And again, it's not that hard, but it's a really good refresher course. The reason I say January 1st, 1982 is because Misty just missed the cutoff. Her birthday was March 1st, 1982. And she had to take the exam because she was 2 months too young. Yeah, man, like I said, I don't think it's a bad deal. And I do know that Alabama just started doing it too. I don't know if I think it's just out of state people, which is weird, but maybe it's everybody, but I do know Alabama, you got to have a boater safety card down there as well. Yeah, man, like I would just encourage people to do it. It doesn't take that long. maybe a couple days, depending on what, where you're taking it at. Definitely take it, even if you feel like you've been on the water, 9,000 times in your life and you can't learn anything. I promise you, there's probably something in there that you didn't know. And it goes down as the nitty gritty as far as if you think about the nav lights on the front of the boat, the reason that one's red and one's green is one of the main reasons there is that you, as the boat coming onto it, the oncoming boat or the boat that's, overtaking this boat, if you see red, that means you don't have the right of way. And if you see green, that means you do have the right of way. If you're coming going to intersect another boat, if you see green, you're good to go, stay your course. And if you see red, you're going to have to let them go because they have the right of way. Stuff like that most folks don't know right off the rip. And it's a great idea. So again, I'm sure that every state out there has them. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Alabama will take Ohio's and stuff like that. If you have one from any state, I think they're good for anywhere. I have one. Don't regret it. 8 hours one day. We all have that kind of time. All right, ladies and gents, is going to do it for my spiel of fall bass fishing here. JR had a work thing to do this evening. I am pretty tired, so I'm going to hop off here. I feel like Forrest Gump. Tired. Think I'll go home now. I'm already home, but I'm going to go to sleep. I've done nothing but think all day today. I might go out to Yatesville tomorrow and do some fishing. Hopefully go out and catch them. I'm going to pick up a jig, a Carolina rig, and a crankbait, and I'm going to go see if I can catch them out at Gatesville because I'm tired of getting my rear end whipped doing scoping things that, if you ain't scoping, you're hoping. In my case, if I'm scoping, I'm hoping to catch one. I think I can go beat the banks up and catch one or two. That's more than I've done the last 2 times, so I'm going to go try her out. There you go. So Fred's got one. Hayward 3-season suit, and it is nice. Guys, yeah, you're right. I don't know. Maybe you did. I don't know. Maybe I need to try that. Maybe I need to call my boat insurance. My boat insurance is pretty shit. Not shit. It's great. Pretty good. It is pretty cheap is what I was trying to say. It's pretty good. Yeah, man. I'm going to go try it out. So we'll let you know. Guys, I appreciate you sticking around for this episode of On Another Line Live. We're at about that 57-minute mark. I appreciate you guys sticking around for this episode. It's been a good one. Talking fall fishing here in the area. If you can, you guys know what to do. Get out there and lean on them. We'll see you next time on Another Line. Yeah, that's right. I'm a spotlighter. I spotlight with the old live scope. See y'all.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of On Another Line Live. We truly appreciate your support, and we couldn't do it without all the amazing folks at home watching week after week. A big thank you goes out to our sponsors, who help make this show possible. Malone's Marine, Borders Sporting Goods, Solar Bat Sunglasses, Picasso Lures, Shimano, and Columbia Sportswear. Their partnership allows us to keep bringing you the content you love. We'll see you next time on Another Line. Until then, get out there and lean on them.